guys, when they catch you and make you inform. Nobody caught me. This is my setup. This is my action.
So it's the same old story, opening today, closed tomorrow. We call them winners that were losers, good movies that didn't find the audiences that we think they deserve. And joining me at the movies is Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune.
And this is Roger Ebert, of course, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times. This week at the movies, we have something special. Instead of reviews of new films, we'll look at what we call winners that were losers, good films that most of the public missed the first time around.
Well, my first winner that was a loser, you saw just a second of it before, it's called Divine Madness, and it starred Bette Midler in one of the best concert films I've ever seen. In fact, there are even times when this feels more like a movie musical than like a documentary of an actual performance. That's because Midler plays a lot of characters in this movie in addition to herself, and also because the director, Michael Ritchie, choreographs the action so that we never ever see the cameras. We're not reminded that this is a documentary by the usual obligatory concert film shots. At first you see some cameraman sneaking around in his tennis shoes, then there's a big shot up the nostrils of the singer. Well, here's Midler early in the film talking about her command performance before the Queen of England.
Then we were really lucky, you know, because we got to actually lay our two eyes on her hiney, the Queen. Have you ever seen her? Oh, kid, she is the whitest woman in the whole world. She makes us all look like the third world. There can be no question that she is a Protestant. Really, she has the wardrobe and everything. I only have one question to ask her, Madge. What have you got in that purse? Anyway, where was I? Oh, my favorite member of the royal household in England is actually Princess Anne. I'm just crazy for her. Such an attractive, outdoorsy lass. Well, she loves nature in spite of what it did to her. Would you like to see my impression of Princess Anne? Oh, you're so cheap. God, they're never going to show this in Europe, I'll tell you the truth. Princess Anne, tell us all here in BBC, tell us, how old are you this year?
Bette Midler has always been hard to categorize as a performer. She's an actress, she's a singer, sings rock and roll and blues and ballads, and then she does stand-up comedy and satirical sketches, and she wears costumes in this movie that range from early Carmen Miranda through Bump and Grind to Bag Lady. But Divine Madness was a disappointment at the box office, and that's too bad.
I think it's just because of this category, concert films. I think people want to see, or may have heard the material already on a record, they may know the person's touring, and they think concert film is somehow dead once removed from them, not special enough to be a movie.
And you know, that's true of a lot of concert films that are simply made by putting a camera in front of the stage and making a photograph, but a good concert film like this one can show you aspects of the performer and of the performance that you can never see in an auditorium.
I agree, and I also like when they do interviews with the people. Give us something special. Martin Scorsese's film about the band, The Last Waltz, that had interviews, and it was something special you could only get in the movie. Okay. My first winner that was a loser is probably going to be a controversial choice. A lot of critics didn't like this picture, and the public didn't seem to care for it either. Tattoo is the movie, an R-rated love story that gets a little kinky, with themes of bondage and dominance mixed in with a more traditional notion that people are looking for love are simply looking for someone who cares about them. Bruce Dern plays a tattoo artist who literally wants to leave his mark on a beautiful model played by Maude Adams. He meets her while working on a commercial, and he invites her back to his tattoo parlor.
Aren't you supposed to be open? I mean, can you close whenever you want to?
For you, I can.
You do beautiful things.
Thank you.
It's not like the usual stuff you see.
What do you mean, stuff?
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Is that a man or woman?
Man?
Do you ever do women?
Yeah.
What kind?
Oh. Usually they're women that are ready to be identified, ready to belong. Women that need the mark in order to exist. It's nothing new. It's actually been going on for centuries.
Why do you call it the mark?
Because that's what it is.
I thought you did tattoos, you know, to be funny, decorative, sexy.
It's much deeper than that.
This looks like it might go in pretty deep, too.
First of all, hold it like that. And it goes just deep enough to make the engraving last.
For how long?
Forever.
Some hot dialogue. What separates this movie from a lot of films about nutty guys fixated on pretty women is that Bruce Dern's character isn't your standard movie nut. On the contrary, he genuinely cares for Maud Adams' character. In fact, a lot more than any of the other men in her life, the photographers, the agents, her boyfriend. No, Bruce Dern really loves her. Yeah, he has the thing about leaving a mark on women, and that kind of dominance is wildly out of date now, so the relationship is strange, to say the least. I think Tattoo went wrong maybe for audiences because audiences don't like to be made uncomfortable by a movie, and the sexual tension between these characters is scary.
I think it went wrong for another reason. I liked a lot of this movie, but I felt that the stage setting was very effective, where we meet Bruce Dern, we meet Maud Adams, we understand the mystique of tattooing as it applies to him.
Both of their worlds.
And then after he kidnaps her and begins to tattoo her, then, at that moment, the movie turns into a conventional thriller. It doesn't continue to follow the psychological development of that relationship. It's just running up and down the stairs and chasing each other with knives and things.
I thought it was a little bit better than you did at the end. Maybe that's where it broke down. Don't you think, though, that when it gets into the sexual arena, people don't get a little tense on pictures?
Partially that, and also this movie never even got enough of a release for people to even decide if they liked it or not.
Are you glad you saw it?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah. Coming up next at the movies, 4 Friends about 1960s hippies and flower power.
I'm going to have a baby.
Well, congratulations. It's Tom's baby.
My next winner that's a loser was released late in 1981, and right away it sank at the box office. It's a movie called 4 Friends. It was directed by Arthur Penn, who made Bonnie and Clyde. It was sort of a guided tour through the strange decade of the 1960s, following a young man from East Chicago, Indiana, as he left a working-class home and went off to college during the era of hippies and love beads, happenings and draft protests and experimentation with drugs. He has an on-again, off-again love affair in the movie with a high school sweetheart who becomes one of the original Flower Children. And in this scene, the affair is off again. So off that the hero, played by Craig Wasson, walks in late on his girlfriend's wedding to somebody else.
Did you come to kiss the bride?
What happened?
I got married.
No,
Oh, I scratched it. Very stylish, don't you think? Minister couldn't take his eyes off it. Thought you'd come to kiss her so.
Oh. Louis? Well, I'd like you to meet my good buddy Louis Carnahan.
Hi.
Georgia, Tom. Oh, hi. David? Hello, Dave. Rudy.
Yes, I've heard about all of you. I hope that you and Tom will be very happy.
I hope so, too. What about David and me?
Yes, of course. It's just that the custom calls for the bride and groom. I think I better shut up.
David?
She asked me, and...
I'm going to have a baby.
Well, congratulations. It's Tom's baby.
I better shut up again.
What the hell's going on? I didn't want to get married.
I did. I love ceremonies. I can't wait to have my baby.
You know, looking at that scene, it occurs to me there must be a lot of parents sitting around who find it very difficult to explain their wedding pictures to their kids. Right. 4 Friends does a good job of tracking how people change in 10 years, and how part of that change is within themselves, and part, though, is dictated by the politics of the society they live in. And that's certainly what happened with these characters who want to go in one direction and are moved over into another. But 4 Friends was a box office bomb. Nobody wanted to see it.
Maybe the emotions were too strong and people were made uncomfortable by, I mean, this movie lays out every emotion at all. And other than that, I can't figure out what's wrong. Maybe another thing, it it wasn't very clear maybe to people what it was about.
Or maybe it was clear what it was about. I think a lot of the people who were hippies, let's say, or who were alive in the 60s don't want to go see that movie because they were there and they don't think a film can capture that experience. And as for the kids, I don't think they understand that decade. I think the 60s must be the most difficult decade to explain if you weren't there of any.
Well, I think they missed a film that has it all, warts and all. I think it's fine film. Oddly enough, I think it's a nice companion piece to the musical Hair. Two strong films about the 60s.
Right.
The commercial failure of our next film, Prince of the City, leads me to the conclusion that audiences prefer films with clearly defined good guys and bad guys, and Prince of the City, like the problem that dealt with drugs, just wasn't that simple. Treat Williams stars as a New York City detective assigned to the narcotics division, where he begins taking part with his partners in all manner of corrupt practices, ranging from outright theft of dope and money to giving dope to junkies and turning them into informers, but still with their habit so that the cops can make more busts. Tortured by a guilty conscience, Treat Williams begins to have doubts about his actions. He considers telling what he knows to authorities, but his wife, she of all people, disagrees.
I know you feel guilty. Other people are guiltier than you. Everybody's guilty. Mary McLean, and you ought to hear her. My Nettie, he's Snow White. He's an angel. Them are in the bank together, and she's got 400 $1 bills for deposit. Her angel's been taken from some old woman doing the numbers in a candy store.
I feel lousy, Carla. The other night I was with my junkies, and I got mean. They break my heart, and I got mean. Remember what it was like when I was just starting out on the roofs? How good it felt? I don't want to feel that way again.
Oh. This guy, Capolino, he's going to force you to hurt your friends. People who've been good to you. Always when I hear you or Gus or Joe, any of the guys, you always say nothing's worse than to be a
rat. A rat is when they catch you and make you inform. Nobody caught me. This is my setup. This is my action. And I'm never going to hurt my partners.
She knows a lot more what's going to happen than he does. This film may seem like a lot like Serpico, but it is more complex than just one good cop challenging a whole lot of bad cops. Why didn't Prince of the City do better? Maybe Treat Williams can't carry a movie by himself. I don't think so, though, because I sure liked him a lot. Maybe audiences want cop films with only a lot of good guy, bad guy gunplay. Whatever the reason, a lot of people missed a very strong American movie, and of all the pictures I'm commenting on here, this is the best as far as I'm concerned.
You know, as I think back over the last couple of years, it seems to me that Prince of the City is the one that got away. It was the big one that people should have seen, that should have made a mark, should have won the award, should have done the business, and been a watermark like The Godfather, like some of those other pictures.
I think so.
And it just slipped past. It just didn't make the impression that
it is. I'm convinced it's this good guy, bad guy phenomenon. I hate, you know, your one cardinal rule of you never insult the audience. Well, I'm afraid there has to be an insult laid, at least in part, that people want it simple in the sense that they want to know who the good guy is, who the bad guy is, and they want to follow him all the way. In this film, it's very strange. You know, the biggest applause in this film is when one of the guys who's bad throws a desk in somebody else's face. It was that...
Yeah, because in that particular scene, he would have done it too. So your sympathy is with the bad guy, and the film is willing to have those kind of contradictions.
A marvelous film.
Now, coming up next, a story of a man and his turtle.
Now, this here is a gopher. He's not a turtle.
My next movie that didn't make it is a very odd, offbeat, and daring movie called Vernon, Florida, that played once on PBS, but has never played very much in commercial theaters anywhere. Maybe I ought to explain that this movie is by Errol Morris, the same man who directed Gates of Heaven, that dog cemetery documentary that we've discussed several times on the air, not to be confused with Heaven's Gate, which was a real dog. Morris has an absolute genius for finding people who are complete originals in his films, people who are obsessed with dead animals, or in the case of Vernon, Florida, with things like wild turkeys and the philosophy of a possum, and in this scene, the life and times of the lowly turtle.
Now, this here is a gopher. He's not a turtle. He's harmless. He won't bite you. I don't know just how come him to be way down in here. He don't like this kind of land here. He's high, dry, sandy land for him, and he'll dig his den to be as far as 20 feet deep sometimes. And he's good to eat, too. But I don't eat them, but people do eat them. He's just a fine piece of meat for the dining table. I believe he wants to walk now. His motor's slow pace.
He's great.
You know, every time I look at that, it looks more like a turtle to me than a gopher.
Yeah, I know,
especially in the close-up. That's Morris's method throughout the movie, though, is just to give these people the freedom to say whatever they say and to think whatever they think. And he took his camera to the actual town of Vernon, Florida, just looked around until he found people willing to talk about their lives, their occupations, their pastimes, and their thoughts about what turtles that look like gophers and gophers that look like turtles think about. One of the best parts of this movie is the scene where a bunch of turkey hunters go out in the dismal, godforsaken swamp, and they stand around with their ears cocked to the wind, listening for the mournful call of the wild turkey. Now, I don't know what this movie is about. Maybe it's not about anything. Maybe it says that all of us have a lot in common with turkeys and turtles and backyard philosophers, and that we all spend a lot of time pondering questions that we'll just never know the answers to.
I think I know what the film is about. I think it's sort of like anti-cinema. It shows us what most movies don't. Most movies have big action scenes and all that isn't real life. I like the sound of the birds chirping, the quiet, that this turtle, this pet that this guy had found. It's just like, you know how they say that pets and their owners are alike? Obviously, there's a connection between
Motor's kind of slow paced.
Everything. It's marvelous. What a turtle looks like, that holding of the turtle up and meat on the table.
But there's a streak of humor in all of Morris's films that's very, for example, in this film, there's a little scene involving the local policeman, and he's so proud of the fact that he has this new two-way radio.
Right.
And it gradually develops that he's the only cop in town, so there's nobody at the other end.
I know.
Talking to himself.
That's great. But you know, with all fairness, this film did reach a large audience by playing on PBS, much bigger than it would if it ever played in movie theaters. I'd just like to maybe see it play again on PBS.
Sure. Okay, fine.
Our next winner that was a loser is an English film that is part biography of a poet and part conversation between that poet and her best friend in the world, her old maiden aunt. The poet is Stevie Smith, who made a name for herself by writing about the human condition, the loneliness, the pain, and the shyness. Linda Jackson plays Stevie, and Mona Washburn plays her aunt. And in this scene, Stevie reveals her brittle wit as her aunt tells her about some advice to the lovelorn.
Well, this girl wrote to the paper and said she'd seen a young man at the tennis club she'd joined, so as not to feel lonely and to get herself fixed up with a house or a flat and a baby. Anyway, this young man would do, she thought. He was all right. The question was, how could she get him to propose? They hadn't actually spoken, you see, so how could she make him propose? Well, they published an answer, and they said, arrange to play the last set with him, then linger hopefully, and perhaps he will see you home.
Oh, what a wonderful phrase, linger hopefully.
Linger hopefully, and perhaps he will see you home.
Can't you just see it? Up and down the suburbs, up and down the provincial towns, up and down India and Singapore and Shanghai, there are girls who have arranged to play the last set and are lingering hopefully.
Most of the movie takes place in that living room because there's no conventional action, and because it's about a poet, you really have to think about this movie. Stevie is the kind of movie, I guess, we should just be happy that it gets made at all, let alone worry about whether it gets seen. But because of the quality of those performances, and they were so exceptional, and because of the really warm friendship between Stevie and her aunt, because it's so true and selfless, this movie, Stevie, is one of those pictures where you want to round up your friends and really drag him to the theater. I did that in one case. I brought a whole group of people to it.
Well, they must have thanked you for it.
I think so, yeah.
One of the things that I noticed in this movie is the ability of a great performer, such as Glenda Jackson, to take a script that is basically just words and to make it into basically just people. Because this could have been an awfully dry movie if we were just sitting there talking and talking and talking. And Mona Washburn and Glenda Jackson make these people, they have an interior drama that's going on that makes the movie exciting, even though nothing appears to happen really overtly.
I know. And you know, we're always talking about how there have been buddy films with men and all this, and we always think, why aren't there more of the women? And in your mind, you immediately think young women, trendy women on the make. Here's a buddy film.
Yeah.
Great buddies.
A great
older
buddy.
women. Marvelous.
At the Movies continues with a wrap-up of winners that lost. Let's take another look at all 6 of our winners that were losers. I picked Divine Madness with Bette Midler all over the map as a singer, dancer, and actress. 4 Friends, about American kids coming of age in the 1960s. And Vernon, Florida, the offbeat, very odd movie about a town of would-be philosophers. Gene's winning losers and losing winners included Tattoo, the offbeat love story with Bruce Dern and Maude Adams. Prince of the City with Treat Williams as a cop under fire from other corrupt cops and his own guilty conscience. And finally, Stevie with Glenda Jackson's English poet, Stevie Smith.
Well, that's all for our winners that were losers. We hope you'll look for them if they make it to a revival theater in your town, or, what's more likely, see them on the pay TV service that you might subscribe to. Next time at the movies, Roger and I will return with 4 new films, and until then, we'll see you at the movies.
Promotional considerations paid for by Ward Johnston, Johnson Wax, and Super Pop Popcorn. Hooray for Raisinets. Now you can enjoy one of the all-time favorite movie candies at home. Goobers and Snowcaps, too. Hooray for Raisinets. Glade Aerosol, the air freshener that instantly makes your home fresh. One spray and you'll know the difference Glade made. Super Pop Popcorn, a tender, delicious, nutritious snack at an economical price. Super Pop Popcorn, it's the one snack you can't eat alone. Super Pop.